Okay, so Matthew 24. We see that this chapter is it's one of my favorite chapters. Aside from Daniel and Revelation, I really like prophecy. And this is this is comparable to that because it is all prophecy. This chapter is very prophetic. And so what we're going to take a look at is, we're not going to look at the whole chapter, but do you guys know the setting of chapter 24? Whenever you study something, it's always important to know the context, know the setting for which that chapter is bringing about the contents of what we're studying. What is the setting of Matthew 24? How does Matthew 24 begin?
Jesus leaves the temple.
Mm-hmm. Jesus leaves the temple.
Yep.
Right.
And then his disciples wanted to know stuff, so they came up to him and then asked him a question.
Right. And the question was, what is the
sign of your coming
and
the end of the age.
And the end of the world? Okay, so in response to those two questions, Jesus gives a full discourse in chapter 24. Okay, are you guys familiar with chapter 24?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So what I'm going to have you guys do is, we're going to have you guys kind of group up. We have enough people. Maybe we could pair up, like twos and twos, okay? What I want you guys to do is take a look after the question that the disciples give, right? And that is verse 4. Verse 4 through... I want you guys to go through verse 4 through 13. Okay? You guys read that together, and I want you guys to come up with some questions based on what you read. Okay? So you could just try to go from verse 4 to 13 as much as you can. Okay? It doesn't have to be like every single verse, but I'm just going to give you guys like a few minutes. Try to cover those verses and see if you could come up with a question for each of those verses, okay? So let's just kind of say one question per person, per verse, okay? You guys could kind of discuss that. And how do you know if it's a good question or a right question?
If it's answered in the text.
If it's answered in the text, okay? So we're gonna just do this as an exercise. And also this is gonna really kind of prime you to observe the text as well, to really observe, utilizing those observation tools that we learned. And so we're going to give you guys some time to do that, okay? So, why don't we just pair up? Whoever's closest. Sue and Jeff, you guys are in the same row. Andy and Warren, you guys can pair up. Okay, so just go through verses 4 through 13. Yeah.
Okay.
And just come up with observation questions for each verse, okay? And I'll give you guys like about a few minutes, and when I say stop, we'll stop wherever you're at. Don't worry if you don't finish, okay? We just want to get you guys, immersed in this passage here. Okay, so Matthew 24, 4 through 13. All right.
And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and I will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass.
So the question is,
But the
what
end
does...
is not yet. For nation
Yeah,
shall
my
rise
question is,
against nation,
what is
and
Jesus
against
warning
nation.
them about?
And there
Okay.
will be famines, pestilence,
So the answer will
earthquakes
be-
in various places. All these things
That
will
no
come
one
upon
deceives
So
you.
what is easy?
Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you.
You want a
And
great
you will be
question
hated
for
by
first
all
line?
nations
Sure.
for my name's sake.
For this one it says,
And then
for many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and
will
will
betray one
deceive
another.
many.
And will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise and
Yeah.
receive many.
So
Because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold.
what is,
But he who endures to the end shall be saved.
what does God, when you will come in my name?
So verse 4.
How many will come in his name? Many.
Yes, that's a good one. How many?
And what will these what will these people say?
You can probably ask
Yeah, that's a good
that
one.
one, say,
Okay.
Or what will these
Jesus
people
warning.
claim?
Yeah, that's
Right.
Yeah.
that's better word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the quote, yeah. I am the Messiah.
Many will come in my name, saying I am Christ.
And how many will be deceived?
When you
Many.
many. So that's actually like 3 questions.
Oh yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah.
And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are in trouble, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
We hear of wars, rumors of wars, but see.
Probably say, how many will come in?
Such
Right,
things
I was
must happen.
wondering about that,
Yeah.
yeah, just
It's
like,
still to
it's
come.
gonna be many, yeah.
You will hear of
Mhm.
wars and rumors of wars. Okay. That question could be asked. What are we hearing?
Yeah. Wars and rumors
What are
of
we gonna
wars.
hear?
Yes.
We're gonna hear wars and rumors of wars.
Mm-hmm.
You should not be troubled by this, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
You can see for this one too. What are we seeing?
You just want one question for that
Wait.
one?
Let's
Yeah,
see
I
two.
think we're supposed to do one question
Okay.
each. Yeah.
For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. and
That's another question too, right? What do we see? We see
You
to
can
it.
just basically ask
Yeah,
what's
what-
coming.
Yeah, yeah, what-
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
What trouble is coming. Mhm.
And what must come to pass?
What are the beginnings
All
of
these things.
Yeah. Yep.
sorrows.
All these things.
Then
So,
will deliver
all mine says of such things.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the King James Version, so that's,
And KJV.
yeah.
That's
Say
better.
who was gonna
I only have the
deliver
NIV because
Mhm.
this is
They will
given to me.
deliver you up to where.
Mhm.
So some of the,
And did
a lot of
do
actually, a
what?
lot of verses was
Right.
paraphrased
Get asked a bunch of questions throughout that one.
shorter
Right.
meanings,
Yeah.
which I don't
And
like.
many will be offended, will be true.
I just like the KJV better.
I mean, I feel like everything translated to English has been paraphrased, otherwise you want to bring out like
Yeah.
Greek and Hebrew.
But yeah, this one is in
What will they do or what,
NIV is like
Father?
really like
Right.
very simple English, but it's missing a lot of like the
Offended,
Yeah.
betrayed,
expounded words.
Yeah, I get you.
Some of the holy words are missing.
covers it.
Yep.
And many false prophets will rise up.
Do you think we're good for verse 6?
Verse 6. Okay. You want to read that one?
Many
Oh, that was a
Maybe
rumors of
deceived,
wars.
but-
I was asking
Oh,
if you
okay.
wanted to move on to the next
to the
verse.
many.
Yep.
Yes.
And who are they gonna be
Alright.
deceived by?
For nations will
False
rise against
prophets.
nation,
Right.
kingdom against kingdom, and there
As
will
long
be
as this will
famines.
abound, the love of many
Well,
will
that's straightforward.
Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom.
love of many
What will rise against each other,
because of lawlessness.
what against each other?
Mm-hmm.
What two things are against each other?
Nations.
And kingdoms.
Nation against nation.
But he who
Oh,
endures
we didn't read it all.
Hey, Marley.
Famines, pestilence,
is gonna be saved.
Yeah, yeah. And when?
Yeah.
And, you
So
know,
you can,
Yeah.
saved at what time
Right.
and,
She
yeah.
can join us.
yeah,
too.
yeah, you can join this group here. Okay, we're good looking at Matthew 24
Okay.
and verses 4 through
Yeah, just going
13.
through it slow.
And
It's
we're just
easy to
coming
pick
up
on the
with
questions.
Right.
Right
Yeah.
questions.
Oh,
Okay.
they don't like that.
So they got a head start, but that's perfect. Just jump right in.
Okay.
Alright.
Number
The easy one would be, what will they do?
Mhm.
Like it says, and there will be what?
Oh, there'll be famines and quakes.
Mhm.
Yeah, all these.
Like, I was confused
What
because
will
I
there
felt
be in
like
various places?
those questions he was asking.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Like answering the text
Mhm.
about
So,
intercessory
Okay,
prayer.
verse 8 says,
Like,
all these are the beginning of birth
he
pains.
figured that out.
but,
But I was
mine says all
so
these are the
confused when
beginning
he
of
was saying that.
sorrows.
I thought these questions are
That's
supposed to be answered in the text and those
So-
questions, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So how we did it is easier, like,
Mhm.
What?
you know, ask questions
Yeah,
saying?
I had to listen to that one like twice, 3 times to
Okay.
understand.
How
'cause
many
it's-
beginning of
'cause
Philippians?
Once you
All
get
these.
through it, then when you start picking it apart, when you start seeing the commandments in there,
Uh-huh,
and then it
it makes
starts to
we're on
make
now.
sense, yeah.
And then we missed the next week, and
24 first.
actually, I'm gonna be
Yeah,
gone,
we're trying
I'm
to
only
figure
gonna
out
be here
how.
one Friday in April.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Oh,
between,
Mhm.
yeah, I have a conference,
Which
and then
are
I have
the-
a reunion with my Andrew's roommates,
uh-huh.
and,
Well, we're putting these up on the YouTube
Oh.
thing, so you can watch them all.
okay,
So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
as soon as they're up there, then
Okay.
they're already getting
Okay,
uploaded,
so
so.
I don't want him to think, yeah, I literally, April's a really bad month, so.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like April 21st is the only Friday that I won't get to.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I know, it's
All
crazy.
these are the beginning of one.
You can say which. So the answer
Do
would
we
be all.
remember all the
Oh,
questions, so you
which
can,
are
cause I didn't write them down.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I can just go through them and
Okay.
pick them out, yeah. They're doing the same one, so once they start,
Context for all these is.
you can just shift
Right.
so that
Right.
they're
Right.
not saying.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
And there will be famine, pestilence, earthquakes in various places.
Yeah, I have the
And then
Ellen White
verse
Bible
8,
too.
Oh, do ya?
Yeah, so I like
Say
doing
these are
the
all
Andrew City
beginning,
Bible
all these are
and then
beginnings of sorrows.
looking to see what her comments are too.
Oh, yeah.
It's.
I had
Yes.
that one, my first Bible was that, the study Bible,
Uh-huh.
and then I went to the,
So,
yeah.
I like having both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, you learn a lot.
This is,
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot of good insights in the bottom there.
There are.
Yeah.
Disciples are asking,
Know that
what,
she was
what
a
are the
Harvard, or
signs?
how they
Yeah.
know that,
Other
you know,
times in the
especially with,
age.
cause we're going through the Old Testament now, and it's so hard to understand.
Would you
I
like to-
really like these comments.
Oh,
'cause
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
Man, how'd they get that out of that?
Okay, then they will deliver you up to
There's one he did online too, like the evening one.
all nations
Um,
for my sake.
That we were talking about
guess it would be
oh, Genesis, day 2.
Okay.
That's the only day that God said it wasn't good, it didn't say anything about it being good.
Oh,
And
Then you'll be
he was
handed
talking
over
about
to
that at work,
persecuted
trying to get the
people.
girls to like start to study, cause they just want answers.
right.
I'm just like, okay.
These are your coworkers?
Yeah, oh
Uh-huh.
yeah. Cause we pray and we study every
Cool
day,
Well,
a
that's
little bit at
cool.
least. And like this week has been
You up
like,
to
well, just
tribulation,
answer these things. I'm like, no, how much time did you spend on it?
Day.
Oh, no.
Right.
You gotta actually read the Bible.
Right.
So it does tie in with Noah and all that stuff because that's that.
My one
That's
Yeah.
it all
says,
ties
then
in,
they
but
will deliver
Yeah.
you,
then I've gotta see exactly because I know bits and pieces of that.
the followers
Mhm.
So I
of
gotta
Christ.
re-go
They
over
are
it
ones
so
that
I can explain a lot better, but
Right.
Okay, so
That's
2 more
awesome.
minutes, guys.
That's awesome.
2 more minutes.
Yeah, that's such a- it's-
That's good that you are doing Bible study with your coworkers, that's wonderful.
oh yeah, that's no other workplace is like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cause my son, he's a speech pathologist in California.
What happens when we
And he started Bible
get handed
studies
over?
with, I think 2 of his coworkers, but they did it
Yeah,
We will be
outside of work.
persecuted
Oh, yeah.
into
They didn't do it at work.
Yeah, yeah,
For whose
Next
sake?
week, do it at work.
yeah.
Don't boil it up.
Yeah.
We're going over a little bit here and there. We're gonna do full studies because I think I'm gonna open my house up on probably in April sometime, and then get people that aren't Adventists
Uh-huh.
in there because they're not Adventists. So
Right.
bring them over so then we can have a
Yeah.
like prophecy series
Right.
and then keep going around.
Yeah, oh, that's
Forget
awesome.
We have one girl in there who's never opened the Bible. She just
And she's
grew up.
interested?
Yeah, she just now
Praise God.
started actually like searching things up like last week or a couple weeks ago, and then she's like,
Yep.
I had a Bible at work, and I was like, use this one. So,
Verse 10 now, right?
you know,
Yeah.
so she's starting to
At that time, many will turn
more
away
in.
from the
I don't know,
faith,
you'd be
betraying
surprised how many
each
attacks
other.
come. Then things stress my boss off, and she's like, we can't be doing this. I'm like, she doesn't see it yet.
Right,
This is beneficial.
right,
Yeah.
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 Well, that's good they're at least open to it.
Mhm.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a question.
And we've actually gone over
Turn away
this
from the faith
Matthew
too.
24.
Hate each
And
other, turn away from
You
them.
can
In that time.
see what's going on in the world now.
Yeah, you have about
So,
3
yeah.
people going on here.
So it's
Mhm.
they're like,
All right, guys.
Yeah, waking up.
Right, right.
Just wrap it up in the next minute or so, and we're gonna go ahead and reconvene. Okay. How far did you guys get?
Chap,
We got through it.
verse 10.
Verse 10, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Verse 10, okay. All right, good. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take a look at this passage together. Now, when you guys are doing this exercise, is it kind of awkward? Or is it kind of becoming, or is it valuable to you?
So, I mean, I feel like it's valuable.
Uh-huh.
It's just, I have different translations, so we have we can't really come up with a question because I'm kind of derailing it.
Gotcha.
We have, different wordings.
Uh-huh.
So,
Okay.
it sounds like a good question rather than a right question.
Yeah, yeah. So what is your translation?
NKJV.
NKJV, so
New
New
King
King
James.
James Version. It's similar. It's not too far off from the King James, but yeah, but I could see how some of the wording changed a little bit slightly.
Yeah, it was like in verse 8, it was all these are the beginning of sorrows.
Mhm.
Another translation was the all beginnings of birthing pains.
Birthing pains,
Yeah.
right, right. Yeah. So if you actually look at the meaning of sorrows, that's exactly what it means, birth pains. And so yeah, there is some sort of confusion there with the choice of wording and things like that. But hey, there's the two gentlemen that joined us. Wonderful. All right, Mike and Algent. We're looking at Matthew 24. So feel free to turn there with us. And we just finished doing a little exercise. All right, welcome guys. All right, so let's take a look. Now, when you guys do this question method, all right, do you also look at the overall picture as well? Because I know it's kind of like defeats the purpose of looking at the overall picture because you're focusing on each verse at a time, right? Coming with questions. But do you also look at how they connect, or do you see the overall bird's eye view of what's going on?
I think it helps to see the overall view when
Yes.
you look at it in that way.
Yeah, so you got to have both of those things going, right? So not just focusing on one verse at a time and you know pulling out questions for each verse, but also look at the bird's eye view, see the overall, see how they connect with the broad overarching theme. Okay, so with that being said, let's start with some questions. Okay, which group would like to start first? All right, so we'll just have one verse. Well, let's just do everybody because we did the same verses, right?
Yeah, everybody did the same thing.
So everyone just give one question.
Do you want to start us in order from verses from?
So starting with verse 4. Okay, Matthew 24, verse 4. All right, so we'll start with Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this verse says, and Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no one deceives you.
Okay.
So what do we need, Jesus, question we were thinking like, what do we need to take heed from?
Okay, what do we need to take heed from? Okay. What do we need to take heed from? Okay, so the answer?
That no one deceives you?
That no one deceives you. Okay, good. Okay, good. So that's one thing we need to take heed to. The warning, do not be deceived. Okay, good. Warren,
Yes.
why don't we let's just do one verse for the sake of time, one verse after the next, okay? So that was good. Let's do the next verse, verse 5.
Okay. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and will deceive many.
Okay. What question did you come up with for that verse, you and your group?
How, for many will come.
And you guys could help him out because you guys are in the same group.
I remember I came up with the question. I think it's,
How many will come and how many will claim to be the Messiah?
So how many will come in my name?
He said, how many claim will be
How many will claim to be
the Messiah?
the Christ, the Messiah? Okay.
Christ of the Messiah.
All right. So what's the answer to that?
Many.
Many. Okay. It doesn't give us a actual specific quantity. It just says many. Okay. Good. Getting the answer straight from the text. Marlene.
And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass,
Okay.
but the end is not yet. So, what must we see before the end of time?
Okay. What must we see before the end of time? And what is the answer?
Well, we're gonna see rumors of war, we're
Uh-huh.
gonna hear rumors of wars, and we're going to, we shouldn't be troubled by it.
Okay, so we'll hear wars and rumors of wars, right? Okay, so those are the things that must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Okay, good. Good. Jeff.
For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places.
Okay.
So what will happen in various places? Famines, pestilences, and earthquakes.
Okay, so what will happen in diverse places? Okay, famines, pestilence, and earthquakes. So this is going to affect many different places, diverse places. Okay, that's what you got from that. Okay, Sue.
All these are at the beginning of sorrows. Our question was, what are these the beginnings of?
Okay, what are these the beginnings of? Yeah, sorrows. Perfect. And we learned sorrows are birth pains. Okay, good. Mike and Algin, do you guys want to do one? You just come up with a question that the verse itself can answer. We'd like to go first. Mike, you've been here first, so I'll pick on you. You've been here before, I mean.
Alright, verse 9, then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by nations for my name's sake. Well, I'm trying to think of a question.
That's okay, take your time. It could be anything that the text can give an answer to.
Do we need to provide the answer? Or?
Yeah, you just provide the question that the text can give the answer to.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's kind of like inductive thinking. You're just thinking a little backwards, but it helps you to let the Bible give out the answer.
I guess the question is, why will they hate us?
Okay, question is, why will they hate us? That's verse 9.
For the sake of the name of Jesus Christ.
Okay, so why will they hate us? Does it say, okay, you'll be hated of all nations for whose sake?
The name of Jesus.
The name of Jesus, my name's sake. Yeah, exactly. Very good. Very good. So that's the answer right there. You got it. You catching on, Algin?
Verse 10, at that time many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. It's a continuation of 9 as well. Why will people turn away from their faith and betray each other?
Okay, why will people, okay, does it mention faith there?
Yeah, turn away from the faith in my version.
Oh, your version says that many will be turned away from faith. Okay.
What's your?
Mine said, the King James Version says, and they shall be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but what you said is good. Like the other question you said, like you had another question, you said, what would cause them to
Turn away from their faith.
turn away from the faith? There's another thing you said after that.
And just hate each other.
But what would cause them to hate each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the answer would be what?
Because they will be persecuted and put to death.
Okay.
Should the answer be in the verse alone?
It should be in the verse alone. Yeah. We know that's implied, but we want to go with the Bible language of what the Bible says, right? And then we could kind of decipher that later. But we're just trying to analyze what we see in the current text,
Yes.
right? So you're saying what would cause them to hate one another? I see the answer there. That's a good question. I mean, that's the right question. That means there's a right answer. And the right answer is what the Bible text gives us. And the answer is what? They were offended, exactly. They were offended. Many they hate you because they were offended by you. That's what it says. Very good. Okay? And in the next text, let's have everyone do this last one. And many false prophets shall rise and shall what?
Deceive many.
Deceive many. Give me a question.
Who will rise up and deceive many?
Who will rise up and deceive many? Okay? And the answer is?
False prophets.
False prophets. Okay, good, good. All right. Nice. Now, I got a question for you. What is Jesus warning you about in this passage?
He's letting us know what's going to happen.
Yeah, but what, if you had to isolate it to just one, if you had to narrow it down to just one thing, what is he warning us about?
Deception.
Being deceived.
Being deceived. How do you know that?
Because it says it. The first thing he says before he starts. Take heed that no one deceives you.
Okay, so he says, take heed that no one deceives you. Okay, that's true, but how do you know for a fact that that is the topic that he is bringing out? Okay, we talked about this in one of our observational sessions.
It's a central theme.
Yeah, how do we know it's a central theme?
It's been repeated.
Exactly. It's been repeated. Okay, how many times does he repeat that warning?
Twice.
Twice?
Deceives.
Throughout this passage that we just read so far?
3 times.
3 times.
Mm.
Okay, he warns us 3 times. So whenever somebody says something more than once, repeatedly, that's a big hint. That's the big thing that he is trying to convey. Do not be deceived. It's mentioned not once, not twice, 3 times. Which verses?
Verses 4,
Verses
5.
4,
verse
5,
and verse 11.
verse 11, right? So the whole passage that Jesus is warning us about is deception. Okay? Yes, other things are happening, right? But he's saying that as a result, those things are happening as a result of deception. Okay? So the key thing is, the key warning in Matthew 24 is deception. Because why? We see it emphasized and repeated. And whenever something's repeated, it's repeated for emphasis. Emphasis. Jesus is trying to emphasize deception. It's going to be a major thing that's going to cause many to be offended, to turn against each other, and all these things that are going to take place in the last days. Okay? Yes?
So that's how we found out the theme.
That's how you find out the theme. Exactly. Exactly. That's a very big indicator, right? Because it's repeated. Very good, Elgin. Okay? Good. So the theme is deception. Jesus is warning about deception. Okay? So notice, take a look. In the very beginning, he says, take heed that no man deceive you. How will they deceive you?
They will claim to be Christ.
Okay? Who? Who's going to claim to be Christ?
Many.
Many. Very good. Using the language from the text. Many will come in my name, claiming that I am Christ, and shall, what will they do?
Deceive many.
They will deceive many. So this is interesting. Okay? Many shall come in my name, claiming what?
They're him. They're Christ.
That they're Christ, I am Christ, right? And by claiming that, it results into
Many will be deceived.
many being deceived. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So that's the setting. Okay. Now Jesus transitions and he says in verse 6, you shall hear what?
Wars and rumors of wars.
Wars and rumors of wars. Okay. And he says, do not be troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And verse 7 says what? Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Okay, so let's pause right there. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. What does that mean? What's taking place here?
Wars,
It's a war. How do you know it's a war?
because they're rising against each other.
They're rising against each other, right? Okay, so there's definitely a conflict. Conflict with what?
Nations.
With other nations, okay? So Jesus says that this is what's going to take place, okay? There's going to be a conflict, between nations and kingdoms, and on top of that, what does he say?
There will be famines.
There'll be famines, pestilence, earthquakes. All right, now I want you to take a moment and pause. Things that Jesus mentioned, those three things. Nation shall rise, well, four things. Nation will rise against nation, famines, pestilence, earthquakes. Let's take a moment to really dwell on these things. What does it mean when there's a famine?
People are starving
People are starving. Why are they starving?
because there's no food.
Because there's no food. Okay. All right, so famines, if famines exist, that means there is a shortage or a lack of food. Okay? Pestilence. What's going on when pestilence is rampant?
Is
Sickness.
that like diseases like COVID?
Yeah, it's like COVID. Okay, so what transpires when there's pestilence?
A lot of sickness and
A lot of sickness. So in other words, why is there sickness?
Hygiene.
Huh?
Hygiene.
Hygiene.
well, because in the Bible God says these things will have to come to pass.
Okay, yeah, it says that here.
Mhm.
But let's get back to, we learn, let's follow the same sort of logic as we talked about famines. Famines is absence of food. Pestilence is absence of what?
Hygiene,
Health.
Health.
Okay, absence of health. Earthquakes. What happens when there's earthquakes?
destruction.
Destruction of what?
Buildings.
Places,
Buildings.
Buildings.
people.
Okay, all right. So buildings. So it could be buildings or habitations or homes, right? So get this. You put it all together. Absence of food. Absence of health. Absence of home. It's really bad enough just to have one of those things happen. Right? But Jesus says in the last days, all these things will happen.
Does that mean they're all gonna happen everywhere?
No.
Or
Well, what does
just-
it say in the text?
No.
That's a good question. Does it say anything in the text? What's going to
Well, I
happen?
didn't think it did, that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, got to look at the Bible. What does the Bible say? What does Jesus say?
Oh, in various places.
In various places.
Sorry.
Yeah, so there it is. The answer's right there, isn't it? Okay, so you guys knew we're still living through COVID, right? How was that like?
I didn't understand what you said.
We're all going through COVID still, right?
Yeah,
So how was COVID like when we experienced it?
not good.
It wasn't good, right? It affected everything. Still affected the way we live, right? And that's just one thing, right? Can you imagine lack of food, lack of health, lack of home? What would happen? Think about it. If you experienced that, what would happen to you? How would you react to such things if you lost all these things in quick succession, one after the next, simultaneously?
All these are the beginning of sorrows.
All things are the beginning of sorrows, but I want you to think psychologically.
Well, we would be depressed.
Okay, well, I think we'd be more than depressed.
Yeah.
Probably in a
think-
panic mode.
You're in a panic mode, exactly. No food. How am I going to feed my family or myself? How am I going to survive? No health. Everyone's dying. Everyone's sick. Everyone in my family's sick. There's no health to help them with whatever's ailing them, right? And then on top of that, our homes are gone. We're homeless, right? So what happens psychologically? You are suddenly in survival mode. Your whole thing is about I gotta survive. I gotta do whatever I can to survive, and this is not a good place to be. Because Jesus says this is the beginning of sorrows. When you start to go into panic survival mode and you're doing everything you can to save yourself and your family, it's gonna be anything goes. Do you guys see that? Do you guys see the like what this can lead to? And Jesus is foretelling us ahead of time, right? So he says, all these are the beginning of sorrows. Now, verse 9 is very interesting. How does verse 9 go? Verse 9 says, what?
They will deliver you up to tribulation.
And they will deliver you up
Kill you.
to tribulation, or it says to be afflicted. Okay, now hold on. Let's not go too fast. It says, and they shall deliver you up. Who is they?
It doesn't say, but I know.
It doesn't say. But when it says they, is it referring to someone?
Yes,
Yes.
a group.
It's referring to a group as plural, because
Yeah.
they, right?
Yeah.
So who is it referring to? It has to be someone that was mentioned before.
False prophets.
You think it's false prophets? How do you know that?
Nations
The
that,
nations.
Okay.
That's the only thing that references people.
Okay.
nations that don't.
So who is they?
Nations.
Okay, you say nations? Why do you say nations, Warren?
It says over here, you will be hated by all nations.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Can we describe
It
them
says-
by their actions? They deliver you up to tribulation and kill you.
Okay, so are you saying that the nations will deliver you up? And if they do deliver you up, why?
Because they're offended.
Why are they offended?
For Jesus, for Jesus' sake.
For Jesus' sake? Okay, all right. So
For my name's sake.
that's good. You're using the text to answer those questions, but we're not really clear on who they is. Okay, it could be nations, because nations was mentioned earlier. It could be. But who was mentioned in plurality earlier? Yes, it could be nations. Okay? Nations do hate you at the end of verse 9. But who are the nations fighting before? Who are the nations fighting before they hated you?
Nations.
They're hating other nations, or
Yeah.
fighting against other nations, right? Nations against nation, kingdom against kingdom. They were fighting each other, but then all of a sudden, they hate you. Why?
It's in verse 5. Many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. The people that will come in his name.
Okay. So you're saying they is
The false Christ.
the false Christ.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes, Jeff?
It says, on verse 9, it says, then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me.
Okay. Okay.
So they,
Okay, so they is what, according to you? According to what you're reading?
be us.
They is us?
On the King James Version, it shows they, right? But not you.
Does it show you on yours?
Yeah, it shows on mine, you.
Where does it say?
Then you will be handed over to be.
That's talking about what's happening to you.
Okay.
That's not talking about they. Okay, so you and they are different. Isn't that right? Okay. So you is talking about what's happening to you,
Okay.
right? They is completely different. They're the antagonists. Okay? You are the protagonists, right? So there's a difference. Yes, Andrew.
So we said the deceivers that come in Jesus' name is antagonists, but what about the people that? What about the deceived? The many that are deceived. How do you deceive them? Are they also antagonists because they're followers?
Yeah, you're bringing out a very good point. Okay. So who would they be?
The deceivers and deceived.
The deceivers and the deceived. guys hear what he said?
Yes.
The day, okay, what was mentioned first that Jesus warned us about?
Deception.
Who's doing the deceiving?
For many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. The
Okay.
people that claim to be Christ.
So in other words, what do you call someone who claims to be
False
a prophet?
prophet.
No.
Or false, or
Stick with the language. They are false
false
Christ.
Christ.
Christs.
Okay, false Christ.
Okay? It doesn't mention prophets.
Right.
It mentions false Christs. False prophets are mentioned later.
Right.
Okay? So right now it's talking about false Christs. False Christs are telling people, and deceiving many people, right?
Mhm.
They're deceiving many people, and the next thing we'd see, what happens? You see that in the meantime, there's wars, rumors of wars, nation rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, right? Famines, pestilence, earthquake. Next verse says, and they shall deliver you up. Who's they?
False Christ.
Well, the false Christ. Why are they delivering you up?
Because you,
They're offended.
namesake.
For name's sake.
Oh, for the name's
Whose
sake.
name's sake?
Jesus.
Jesus' namesake. Jesus is
True Christ?
the true Christ.
Ah.
Okay? So if you're standing for the true Christ, guess what? The false Christ does not like that.
Oh, yeah.
And he sees you as
Enemy.
enemy, public enemy number one. Right? So it doesn't say it, but you got to look between the lines. And the details give you hints of what is progressively taking place. Do you see that?
Mhm.
This is why observation is so powerful. Okay? So it's interesting. It shows that it says, they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. So what is happening here? How did the false Christs get people to turn against you for Jesus' name's sake?
Well, by persecution.
Well, persecution is, a method in which they carry this out, but how are they getting people to do it?
By deception.
Yeah, okay, by deception, but how do you get people to do what you want to do in mass? Like, how do you get the whole world to follow what you want to do?
You put them in a panic mode.
You put them in a panic mode, exactly.
Because they're not thinking straight, and there it says, and there will be famines. All those things together will alert people
Okay,
to turn on somebody that,
right. So you just cause panic mode.
Mhm.
You instigate panic mode, and think about it, if you are deprived of food, if you're deprived of health, if you're deprived of home, you are in desperation panic mode, and you'll do whatever to survive. What does the spirit of prophecy say? And this is where spirit of prophecy comes in to kind of add to this, right? When all these disasters are taking place, what does the false Christ say?
they're the reasons why it's happening.
These people are the reason why that we're deprived of food, health, and home. They're the ones that are responsible for this. And so guess what happens? They
deliver you to tribulation.
They deliver you to tribulation. In other words, remember the story of Nero?
Mhm.
What did Nero do?
He fiddled.
He was crazy. What did he do? He torched Rome.
Yeah.
Mm.
He torched Rome. And then after he torched Rome, what did he do?
Blamed it on
He
Christians.
blamed it on the Christians. And what happened to the Christians?
Persecution.
They all persecuted, right? The same thing is happening here. Do you see that? Between the lines, right? You put them in panic mode. They say, who's responsible for this? These people. They're not following what these false Christs are saying. Therefore, they're not with the program. We need to eliminate them. And when we eliminate them, all our problems will be gone. So notice, the nations are rising against nations, but what's happening now in the next verse? The nations who are now fighting each other, they're now doing what?
Turning against people that are Christ.
They're turning against, so they're now working together.
United.
They're now united. They used to be fighting each other, but now they are united with a common purpose: eradicate the followers of Christ. Do you guys see that? Between the lines? Yeah? So when you pull these things and you observe the details, you see these little hints of progression of what Jesus is showing that's going to take place. Yes or no? Are you guys following?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so it says, and they, so it's like it says, they shall deliver you up, right? To be afflicted, and shall kill you, and shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Okay, and then verse 10, what does it say? And then
Many will be offended.
many will be offended. Okay, and what will they do?
Betray one another.
Betray one another. Okay, so what does that mean when they betray? If somebody betrays you, what does that mean?
They were once on your side.
They were once on your side, or they knew you. So these are not just strangers that are betraying you, are they? These are the ones closest to you, that they're feeling the pressure because of their association with you, and they buckle under the pressure, and they turn you in. Are you guys seeing that? So this is the progression is getting more intense, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. And then it says, what does it say now?
Hate one another.
They will hate one another. Okay, so not only will the nations hate you, but who else will hate you?
Our friends.
Your friends.
Yeah.
Your friends, those closest to you, those who once called you family or friends, they're gonna hate you too. Why? Because
Of Christ.
they don't want to be associated with you. Because now you're a stigma to the world. You're the one that's responsible for all the stuff. So they wanna have nothing to do with you. Sever every connection and tie with you. Right?
That sounds like Peter.
Yeah. Denying your friends, denying those people, right? Exactly. And so look at this. And then it says, 11. What shall arise? What's the next progression? What takes place next?
The many false prophets will rise up.
Okay, so who's going to rise?
False prophets.
False prophets. Now let me ask you this. Who was mentioned earlier before this? False Christ. Who is in the hierarchy higher?
Christ.
False Christ or false prophet? Which one's higher?
False Christ.
False Christ. So notice, the false Christ actually deceives many. Many people are deceived. And look at verse 11. Many false prophets will rise up, and they too in turn will deceive many. Right? So in other words, out of those ranks of those who are deceived, false prophets arise from the mist. And they're also promoting the agenda of the false Christ. Do you guys see that? Yeah? All right. And verse 12. What do we see in verse 12?
Lawlessness will abound,
Lawlessness will abound, okay?
and then the love of many will grow cold.
Love of many shall grow cold, okay? Do you see this in relation to what we talked about? Okay, how, you can see how this could happen. Okay, yeah. How will lawlessness abound?
Be like the Wild West, they'll be carrying.
Yeah, it's gonna be like like panic mode. Yeah, crazy. It's gonna be like the Wild West for sure.
Because
Yeah.
the deceivers were causing a panic, and now that all the Christians are brought to tribulation and are gone, I guess, they are still causing panic.
They're still causing panic. Yeah. Okay. What else do you see here that kind of indicates lawlessness and love growing cold?
it's the second wave of deception. So the first wave got everybody to start to kill people. The second wave is just draining them mentally, or draining the last of the hope. Because
Okay.
there's no law, because everything's already crumbling around them.
Okay. So, morality is being lost, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So, morality is being lost, and because morality is being lost, what tends to happen when you see that morality is like starting to become very, what's the word? Very rampant, right? When you see morality being rampant, what is the reaction when you see something happening like that? When morality is just going down, what's the reaction? There could be many reactions, but what's a very strong reaction against that?
People will not love each other as much anymore.
Okay, you're trying to get the answer from the text. Okay, good. Yeah, people will not love each other, okay? But there's another underlying reason why they don't love each other. And it's related to lawlessness. Okay, so if immorality is rampant, right? Morality is being lost. And reaction to that could be another extreme response to that. So what would be the extreme to morality being lost?
Hatred. Well,
No respect for human life.
That comes later.
Oh.
Whenever morality is going down the tubes, there is a strong emphasis to really push for morality.
oh yeah. Push for religion.
Push for religion, exactly, right. Since morality is going down the tubes, they say what we need to do is we need to push to restore spirituality by all means necessary, right? So the reaction when things are going down in lawlessness is to push for reform, push for, enforce spiritual, restoration for the nation as a whole, right? And when you do that, doesn't Great Controversy mention something like that? What happens when they push for that?
Well, the pendulum swings too
The
far.
pendulum swings too far, and what happens?
And we lose our freedom.
We lose our freedoms, exactly. All to enforce spirituality to the masses.
Right.
As a means to stem the growing, rampant immorality, right? We got to do this to save our nation, and we got to do this, and we got to turn back to God. This whole nation has to turn back to God. And by all means necessary, we're going to make it happen. In fact, let's legislate that. Oh my goodness. You see how extreme they're going? We got to legislate, and we got to make sure that people turn around and go back to God, turn back to God. And what we're going to do? We're going to pass a law that everyone must follow. And because of that, lawlessness abounds, although it looks like law is being instituted. But ironically, it's lawlessness. Why? Because they are enforcing what? They're enforcing a day of worship
And the Sunday law.
that is against the law of God. Are you guys seeing this?
Mhm.
Or am I just kind of throwing this out there?
Yep, I see it.
Yeah? And so, verse 13, what does it say?
But he who endures to the end shall be saved.
But he that endures to the end will be saved. So, during this difficult time, let's review what we've covered so far. What does God's true, unswerving followers, what do they do? What do they have to endure? Let's just do a recap. What do they have to endure from the onset of all this stuff to the very end in order to make it?
Famines, pestilence. Earthquake.
famines, pestilence, earthquakes,
Deceptions.
deceptions, false Christ. Let's not skip that. False Christ is the first mention, and everything after that you mentioned, yes, right? Famines, pestilence, earthquakes. Then you're delivered up.
Tribulation.
You're afflicted, right? You're killed. You're hated of all nations for Jesus' sake.
Persecuted.
You're persecuted. You're betrayed. False prophets arise, and then the second wave comes of deception with the false prophets holding and promoting the false Christ agenda. Right? And deceptions abound, iniquity abounds, love of many grows cold. That's what we have to endure. Oh my goodness, how can we endure that? How can we endure that? Can you guys endure that? Then there's no hope for us.
Through Christ, through our study and our relationship with
Okay,
Christ.
yes, absolutely. Through Christ and our relationship with Him is what's going to carry us through. But what does this text say? Following text. He that endureth to the end shall be saved. And how do we endure? How do we endure?
Through the help of Christ.
How do we endure? We endure to the what?
And
End. Can you guys endure to the end?
not on our own.
You guys are missing it. You guys are not with me. He that endures to the end shall be saved. What brings the end? What brings the end?
All the gospel's been preached.
When the gospel's been preached, right? And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached unto all the world as a witness unto
That's what?
unto all nations. Who's against you?
The nations.
The nations are against you.
So you
And despite the nations being against you,
Still
you
preaching
need
it.
to promote the gospel to them. The ones that are persecuting you. And how do you promote the gospel? Yeah, you could tell them, our Adventist doctrines and all that stuff, but no. The best way to show the gospel to them, it shows that even though they're persecuting you, you are showing a Christ-like character through it all.
right.
And then they see who's the real, genuine follower of Christ. That perhaps is the most strongest way to share the gospel. When you're going through the thick of the most cataclysmic upheaval that this world has ever experienced, but yet through it all, holding on to Jesus, right? And also, furthermore, what helps us get through that is that we have that desire to promote the gospel. All these things are coming at us in all directions. We're getting attacked on all sides, but our main focus is get the gospel out there. Get the gospel out there. The sooner we get the gospel out there, the sooner this whole thing ends. That is what's going to get us through. When we realize I have a part to play to bring the end about. And the end about cannot come unless I do my part in the most unfavorable circumstances to share the gospel to everyone. Even especially to the ones that are persecuting me as public enemy number one. When Jesus was being crucified, he was being crucified by who? There was an alliance between who?
Nations.
The nations, but like
The state and
the religious,
religious in the state.
the political and the religious were combined, right? The Jews combined with the Romans to do away with Christ, right? And when Jesus was on the cross, what did he say? When the enemies were saying all these rebuke and stuff on
Forgives
it,
them.
he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And guess what? The centurion who was responsible for putting Jesus on the cross, he saw everything, how Jesus acted. how Jesus received all these people, and that for him to utter those words against his enemies that were tormenting him, persecuting him, ridiculing, reviling him, and he says, by beholding Jesus, he says, surely this man was the Son of God. And brothers and sisters, that's what we need to show the world, the nations that hate us. We need to show that same Christ-likeness in the most difficult of times. And may the Lord help us to do that, right? And so it's really important for us to remember who our Christ is and to carry out the gospel as it is in Jesus Christ, the true Christ. You know, in a time where the world believes in the false Christs, right?
Somebody once said that a philosopher or somebody in the past said they preach the gospel every day, but they very seldom used words.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And that's what needs to happen. That's the kind of gospel that is irrefutable evidence that nobody can deny.
They were asking who said that?
I can't remember.
Francis of Assisi.
It was either a philosopher
Yeah.
or somebody in history down through the ages. Nobody else has heard that before?
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I
They
have.
say that preach the gospel always, and if necessary, use words.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Francis of Assisi.
Mm,
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very
It's,
nice.
Oh, okay.
I
That
like that.
Now you know who said it.
Francis of Assisi.
Yes. Very good.
He was
All right.
actually a priest, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People call him Saint Francis of Assisi.
Okay. What did you guys think of the study?
Okay.
Did it make sense?
Mhm.
Did you guys see the connections? Okay. This is how you should study. Okay. Sometimes you gotta look for the connections, right? You gotta see how the Bible shows the progression. You gotta kind of put in human psychology as well, right? Because that's how you actually reach people, when you can actually relate to them in a way that they can relate to what you're saying. And the Bible is very relatable. You just gotta bring it out.